Robin Zander, scene A1.
Hello and welcome back to Snafu. I'm Robin Zander, and I'm so delighted to welcome today's guest, Abby Davisson. Who is Abby Davisson? She is the author of Money and Love, an intelligent roadmap for life's biggest decisions. And we talk a lot about money and love in both her life and mine, as well as practical tools that anybody can use to assess their own decision making and make the right decision at big significant turning points in their lives. Previous to this book and starting the Money and Love Institute, Abby was the president of the GAPS Foundation, so led GAPS philanthropic arm for many years. And she's going to be coming on stage at Responsive Conference 2024 alongside author Alex Pong to talk about work, rest, money, love, and making intelligent decisions in our lives. I hope you enjoy this brief conversation with Abby Davisson, and I hope to see you at Responsive Conference 2024. Abby Davisson, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
I'm delighted to be here.
And even more, I'm delighted that you're going to be coming on stage at Responsive Conference.
I am very excited.
For folks listening and watching, let's just start with a brief introduction. We've only got a little bit of time here today, but you have such a rich history, your book, your career trajectory. What's your elevator story? When someone says, what do you do?
Yeah, well, it's evolving, so I'm still working on it, but I am an author. I'm a Fortune 200 leader turned entrepreneur, and I think deeply about making holistic decisions.
Share, if you would, a little bit about your background from the Fortune 200s into entrepreneurship and the writing of your book.
Yeah, well, I have had a career across all three sectors. So the Fortune 200 was the last stint, but had started off in the nonprofit sector and spent some time in the public sector as well. So, and really the through line was around helping people. So social impact work. It was very focused on education and then on workforce development. And when I was at Gap, led the social impact work of the company, including was the president of the foundation there. And along the way, I went back to graduate school and got my joint degree, my business degree, and my degree, master's in education. And while I was at business school, which was at Stanford for me, I met two people who really changed my life. One is the person who became my husband, and the other is the person who became my co-author. My husband and I actually took a class in business school taught by my co-author, who is named Myra Strober. She was the first woman professor to get tenure at the business school. And she's a labor economist, and she taught a class on, it was called Work and Family, all about the decisions you face as someone who is ambitious and wanting to combine a career with a personal life. And my husband, we were just dating at the time. We took this class at the perfect time for us, where we were trying to make big decisions about, do we accept a job in the same city? Do we move in together if we end up in the same city? And Myra had shared a surprising piece of data in that class, which is that couples who live together before getting married have higher divorce rates. And that was very surprising to us. So we dug into the data, tried to figure out, why is that? Can anything be done to prevent it? And it turns out that, yes, there is something that can be done, and that is being intentional about combining your life with someone. And so we wrote essentially what became the blueprint of we will celebrate 15 years of marriage right around the conference time, in fact.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah. And as I was climbing the corporate ladder and my husband was climbing the ladder in his respective field, we put the principles that we learned through the class, to work all the time as we navigated job changes, as we had one child and then another child, as we dealt with aging parents, all the things, right, that you deal with in life. And it struck me that at some point, and we came back as guest speakers for over a decade, and it just struck me that the information that we learned in the class was something that I felt should be taught in every workplace and to every aspiring leader. It was so fundamental. And when my co-author suggested that we write this book together, I jumped at the chance. And that was the start of this next chapter of my journey.
So I want to come back to, because you kind of just were like, oh yeah, by the way, I was the president of the Gap Foundation, right? Like, I also am, as somebody who's in the dating market, I'm like, wow, that's an incredible graduate program where you meet like a lifelong mentor and a lifelong partner. That's like a good ROI. But the book is, and the book just came out in January of 23, Money and Love, an intelligent roadmap for life's biggest decisions. Um, uh, I'm a fan of the, what is it, Love, Sex, and Money podcast, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
right, like these are two topics that we, right, two taboo topics, perhaps money and love that merit more attention. Talk to me and talk to us a little bit about what's in the book and what do you hope people get out of it?
Yeah, well, Freud said that love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. So they're definitely what makes us who we are. And you're right. I think money is more taboo than sex. So if we're going to rank them, we definitely people
Which is
shy
saying
away.
something because like both
Yeah,
of those are pretty taboo. Continue.
totally. So the book is was inspired by the course, but my co-author retired in 2018. So we did a lot of work actually to update the research in the book. We did a large survey talking to people all about how they make big life decisions. And the book covers everything from finding your person, um, whether to get married or enter into a long-term relationship with them, all the way up through combining a career with a long-term relationship, having children, where to live and when to move, all the way through divorce and elder care. And the through line of the book is really a framework for how to think about making big life decisions, because obviously we don't want to tell anyone what to do. We can't, because everyone's situation is unique. But there is a lot of evidence and research out there around how we can make better decisions. And so we wanted to develop a framework that was flexible enough to be applied to a variety of life decisions, and yet sturdy enough that you could rely on it over and over again.
I'm just laughing because my habits of making significant decisions in my life, and there's caveats to this, but like I started a restaurant with no restaurant experience in 2016 in 3 weeks. Right? Like I started Responsive Conference in a day in early 2016. Right? Like I don't have a framework other than gut intuition. And maybe the caveats are looking for ways to protect the downsides, particularly in business, but in life as well, right? I don't skydive because I know my addictive tendencies are sufficient that I would then base jump in a wingsuit and die. Right? So like wingsuit base jumping is not reversible versus starting the restaurant. I could always sell the assets and kind of the worst case scenario was survivable. But if you were to condense, and I know that is what the book is and that is what your work is today, but what is a framework? We could take business since we're talking about responsive conference and the future of work, but like what's what's an aspect of that framework? If most of just for me, like how I make decisions in my life tends to be intuition, gut instinct, informed by data, right? What are some nuances that you would advise me or anybody around making big life decisions?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think self-awareness and self-knowledge is so important. So I love that you already know that you're a gut truster. We actually have a quiz on our website, which is moneylovebook.com, that helps other people who might not know themselves as well identify their decision-making style when it comes to big life decisions. And it's helpful to know what your tendency is so that you can put guardrails in place. And, it sounds like you know yourself and you have put some of those guardrails. There are other people on the other end of the spectrum that tend to be vary in the details and have, their spreadsheets have like 75 tabs as they're trying to, analyze everything to get all the data, which is obviously impossible. But those people need a different check against their tendencies than you do, right? And so the book is and the framework is designed to help people slow down. One of the key principles is that we tend to make big life decisions too quickly. We Daniel Kahneman, the late Nobel Prize winning
Amazing.
scientist, talks
Thinking
about,
fast and slow.
yeah, and in that he lays out a framework for system one decisions, which are fight or flight, guided by emotion. You're being chased by a predator. What do you do? And then system two decisions, which are really the more analytical, the more logical, the more kind of sophisticated reasoning. And most big life decisions should be made from a system two perspective, but that's just not where we go as humans. There's all the reasons that we want to, protect ourselves from uncomfortable emotions. And so we want to get to the other side of a decision very quickly without sitting in the discomfort and the uncertainty. And so the framework is designed to help you slow down, to turn over the right rocks, and to give you a process to depend on when you can't control the outcome. And that's true of every decision. But if you feel good about the process, then you can, it's not easy to let go and not be attached to an outcome, but you can actually, feel good about the way that you made the decision and depend less on the result to help you realize whether that was a good decision or not.
I spent at least a year in university reading pretty much every paper at that point Kahneman and Tversky had published. I'm fascinated by the distinction between making decisions not via adrenaline and fight and flight, but also the creative constraints of making a decision quickly because both speed in business and oftentimes in life is a competitive advantage, but also if we give ourselves too much time, then a decision just becomes waffling forever and nothing ever gets done, right? So like, I think about my decision to open the cafe, which was a real turning point for me in my professional career. And it was not made from a place of panic. It was made strategically, but it also was made in a day, right? Like the cafe opened in 3 weeks from zero to serving customers. And so that distinction of like not 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 making any important decisions from fight and flight, but also making things quickly, even within a more slow and methodical or thoughtful kind of internal approach.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is an important distinction. And the first step of our framework is to clarify what's most important to you. So the framework has 5 steps. We call it the 5 Cs. And the first, which is, I think the most important and the hardest, is to clarify what's most important to you. And so if you can get that clarity quickly, then it actually makes the other 4 steps go much more smoothly. You know where you're aiming, and so you can sprint there, just making sure that you check the boxes that it's important to check. Like you wouldn't want to serve customers without like getting insurance or, all the other pieces, right? But once it sounds like you maybe had that clarity at that moment in your life and you ran after it. I think what hangs a lot of people up in life and in business is not being clear entirely what you're solving for, and also not listening deeply to your own voice, because there's this concept of mimetic desire that French philosopher René Girard developed, where our wants are very powerfully influenced by others' wants. And so like that's true in our lives, right? It's why we hear we might see friends buying a certain car and suddenly think like, oh, maybe I should look at that car. But it's also true with companies who see everyone investing in AI and thinking, oh, well, we should be investing in AI. We don't want to be,
Right.
left out of that advancement. And so it's important to get super clear whether it's about your personal desires or what is the reason you exist as a company, and use that as the North Star that can guide the other steps.
Nice. I said that we were going to come back to being, casually just a drop in the bucket, the president of the GAPS Foundation and sort of leading a global organization. Speak a little bit about your experience there and what you did there and what that even means as a job role.
Yeah, well, I was at the company for nearly a decade. I actually started as an intern when I was in that business school program. So I guess
Amazing.
roads lead back to that. And joined as a full-time employee in the foundation a number of years later. But it was, the company is obviously an institution in San Francisco and global brand, but it has a really long tradition of philanthropy. The founders, Doris and Don Fisher, started the foundation when the company was, barely little more than a decade old,
Hmm.
and and it actually, is really strategic in terms of the way that it both has an impact in the world, but then also has benefits to the business, and not in the illegal sense, right? There are funds that are purely charitable, but obviously the reputation and there are strategic advantages that really do accrue to the company from the social and environmental impact programs that they have built over decades. And so I had the privilege of scaling one of those programs, which is a program called This Way Onward now, which is helping to get young people their a way in and a way up into the workforce. So the company has a skill in training people for their first jobs. So many people, as I would speak at conferences over the years, would say, "I worked at a Gap store for my first job." It's like
Yep.
a big thing that unifies a lot of folks, and it was something that we then took that advantage, that skill, and used it to help find and train young people who didn't have someone in their family who could introduce them to a hiring manager, or didn't have anybody who could open doors for them. So we did that in partnership with a lot of different nonprofits, and I helped to scale that program, which continues today as a flagship program of Old Navy, and then took over the leadership of the foundation, which was a much broader effort beyond that one signature program, and have the privilege of doing that. And I also helped to start the employee resource group for parents at the company. So I had, even though the money and love was not something that I thought significantly about in my day job, I did
Sure.
feel that there were ways that the company, and this was before the pandemic, so before
Of
the
course.
spotlight was shown on parents and caregivers as folks who were doing a lot of work outside of the Zoom screen, if you will, and that became a really an important lifeline to a lot of folks when suddenly their kids could not be dropped off anywhere before they started their workday.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about Responsive Conference. I'm so excited that you're going to be coming on stage, and coming on stage alongside Alex Pong, with whom recently had an interview, and really excited for this conversation. Sharing as much or as little as you want. I know Alex had a big role in your life and career. Um, what should people look out for in this session at Responsive Conference 2024?
Yeah, I'm so thrilled to be in conversation with Alex. His books are phenomenal, and particularly his book Rest is one that has been extremely influential to me. I think people should, if they're interested in hearing more about how rest and the concept of being deliberate about incorporating deliberate rest into your day and life. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to do that. You can certainly do that as someone who is working in a company, leading a company, but how it can impact creativity, the relationship between rest and decision making. We're going to cover all of those things, and I will share more about how the book has been such a cornerstone to me making the transition from leading a significant function in a Fortune 200 company to being an entrepreneur, and trying to do things a little differently than I learned for the first 20 plus years of my career.
100%. Well, Abby, I was excited for this conversation before you and I sat down for this short interview. I'm more excited after. Um, yeah, any parting thoughts or parting invitations to folks listening right now?
Um, well, I'm just very excited and have a lot of anticipation about this conference. It sounds amazing. And I think the invitation is for folks to think about what big decision is on top of mind for them. Could be a big life decision, it could be a big business decision, and would be delighted for them to come to our session with that top of mind because they will have an opportunity to think through that a little bit more deeply during the time that Alex and I will be together.
Awesome. Well, folks can find you abbydavisson.com or Money and Love on Amazon or anywhere else you get books. And yeah, I'm so thrilled for your session at Responsive Conference coming up in just a couple of weeks.
Thanks so much. I'm really
Thank
excited to
you.
be there.